This video got a lot of people very upset, and Belieler accidentally exposed himself in it. Now, we already watched the apology video, and one, that was no apology, and two, that was blatant gaslighting more than anything else. So this should be pretty interesting.
Here's the deal. Unit economics online are getting a bit funky, and that is leading to some pretty damn bad stuff that will not be good for the health of the industry going forward. Essentially, media companies are being gutted by venture capital vultures that see them, of course, as assets to be stripped to the bone and then be discarded. There's no thought to the audiences that these media companies serve or the staff who works there. Often it's one of those things, we can criticize the sites, we can criticize the big corporations, but ultimately, whenever a big hot journalistic report drops in a game like Overwatch or Diablo or Dragon Age, that is actually of a lot of value to us. Remember, Anthem came out, Anthem exploded, and then we got highly detailed articles with loads of sources explaining why that game was such a shit show. That's the kind of thing that we actually want to see. So today we're talking...
Okay, so I understand why people are unhappy with this video. First of all, it implies that news sites like Kotaku are actually really useful and that people would not know what to do with their lives without Kotaku and things of similar nature here. And it also implies that if these sites that no one gives a shit about at this point would stop existing, that we would never know what happened to Anthem. First of all, we're gamers. We don't care why Anthem failed. We just care that it did fail. Now, admittedly, it's pretty funny knowing why it failed, but the idea that without these news sites we would have never gotten the details, that's just absolute bull, okay? If it wasn't leaked to a news site why things went the way they did with Anthem and other games, some YouTuber would have gotten the email and someone would have told them about this. This is already happening in the world. And also, venture capitalism is not what's destroying shitty news websites, and I say news in quotation marks here, like Kotaku and whatever. They have already dug their own grave, now they're losing, and now some companies are going in, yes, venture capitalist style, and, you know, trying to see maybe they can actually salvage something there. It's not the venture capitalists' fault that Kotaku decided to off itself by becoming Kotaku, okay?
Talking about the latest in a long line of these examples. One of the more prominent sites in gaming is being forced to meet pretty damn impossible goals that seem to be designed to get...
Prominent? Kotaku? Is supposed... And he's implying that people are trying to put Kotaku to a high standard? Bro, the only standard that people are trying to put Kotaku towards is don't tell blatant lies about games and gamers. That's pretty much the only thing that people are saying Kotaku shouldn't do. Everything else is who cares. Wow. Wow, this is bad.
Staff to quit, likely to replace their work with AI slop because this group has said that they want to do that, and eventually there will be nobody really left to stop the executives from just selling the brand entirely. And look, have you ever wondered why you're kind of getting, you know, less of the journalism and more of those like horrible SEO keyword stuffed guides that are kind of shitty? This is why, and today we even have a convenient villain, and that guy is Jim. Jim Spanfeller. We're going to be talking about what Jim has been doing. It ain't good, but there is a silver lining, because as the Jims of the media world kind of, you know, tighten their stranglehold and things, and as people flee these sites, well, we start to get things like Second Wind appearing. Of course, Second Wind was the Escapists video team being driven out, not by Geo Media, but by Gamers Group. That's another example of that. It's led to Second Wind, and I think we can definitely say that that is a big win for people. So we're going to see less of the big media companies.
Who cares? I don't think most people are now trying to consume their gaming news in the first place on, you know, these kind of websites. YouTube has completely, you know, strangled them out of existence almost at this point. Because gamers can easily do the same thing as journalists. Because nowadays journalism is essentially, of all kinds by the way, not even gaming. It's just looking at Twitter and then writing about a tweet that they saw. This is effectively modern day journalism. So, I mean, I can do it, you can do it, almost anyone can do it on YouTube.
But we will see smaller, more siloed groups of creators who decide to go direct to their readers. And funny enough, that is exactly what we do at bellular.games. Obviously, ad rates going down, things being, you know, unpredictable and a bit scary. We're not immune to that, and that is why bellular.games is what we are essentially growing. We decided to move off Patreon. We are now running our own site. It's built on open source technology, so all of that
Amazing.
Stuff
I really care about open source technology also. Care so much. Well, actually, I know why it matters, but you know, still.
Our actual news reports before I even do them, so you'll get the stuff that the research brings to me, and of course early and ad-free videos. So that's what's going on there, and look, at the end of the day, this ain't about Lambos, this is about wages going up and job security. So that's what's up. Let's then talk about this story. Okay, so the thing that kicked it off is the editor-in-chief of Kotaku quitting publicly. And that's a phrase that we hear quite a lot because, in fact, this is the second editor-in-chief that has left that company in 7 months. Previously, Patricia Hernandez was fired, and the reason why she was fired is because she refused to follow the direction of the executive leadership who actually own the website. Essentially, she was being told there was a corporate mandate that would see Kotaku pivoting from news and commentary and critique over to a site that would be heavily focused on guide writing and essentially cheap SEO.
Wait, so is that bad? Is that bad? Because Kotaku previously is just you know, cesspool of vogue bullshit pretty much. Kotaku doesn't care about gamers. They actually pretty much hate gamers. You know, like Sleep Baby Inc. and other companies like that. Everyone who works in Kotaku and is a journalist is a failed political pundit who went into games journalism because they were so bad they couldn't even become a political pundit. They hate gaming in general. We already know this. This is no secret. People, especially in Kotaku, have been exposed for this for years now. You can probably look at the list of all of the people writing articles for Kotaku, and if you Google their name and search long enough, you will see people expose them for being failed political pundits and now pushing politics in video games.
SEO bait. Now, obviously, I know Kotaku is, you know, controversial site, obviously. Some people love it, others don't. There's lots of sites out there. It's kind of fine and normal that there will be...
Who the hell loves Kotaku?
Ones that you gravitate towards more or less. It's actually worth saying, when we get into the numbers here, Kotaku only has more than a handful of staff, and they've got pretty damn high turnover rate. And a lot of what they do is kind of driven by what that corporate leadership actually wants. So it really is a Ship of Theseus-like situation, bit of a revolving door. The thing is, though, actual journalism can come out of there. Do you remember earlier on last week, the story of Overwatch 2 PvE? That was actually broken by a journalist working for Kotaku who had sources at Activision Blizzard.
Oh, this is what people were talking about in the apology. We already read comments. This is not true. This is simply not true. I thought it's a different thing. But yeah, this Overwatch thing is not true. Kotaku didn't break shit here. Yeah, Kotaku didn't break anything here. Okay? This is just a blatant lie. Misinformation.
So it is one of those things where ultimately these sites are finding themselves where, you know, the people there, they want to, often anyway, they want to try to do the journalism, you know, they would rather break some sort of crispy story about Activision Blizzard.
Don't believe it.
What they are more being forced to do by leadership, though, is just exist in the endless content mines, which...
They don't want to do that. If they wanted to do that, then we would not get the Kotaku slop. The leadership wants to change course because the Kotaku slop is literally just virtue signaling social justice warrior BS.
is not a particularly fun thing. So to get to the story, here is the email that Jen sent to Geo Media leadership. That is Jim Spanfeller and Leah Goldman, okay? This was seen by Aftermath. And funny enough, Aftermath are one of those groups that used to be in one of those larger sites, and then they basically said, screw this, we're doing it ourselves. So here's the email. After careful consideration, I have concluded that the current management structure and decision-making processes at Geo Media are not aligned with my values and goals for Kotaku. I firmly believe that the decision to invert Kotaku's editorial strategy to deprioritize news in favor of guides is fundamentally misguided given the current infrastructure of the site. This decision is directly contradicted by months of traffic data and shows an astonishing disregard for the livelihoods of the remaining writers.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, she already looks like someone who has they, them in their pronouns. Second of all, I can already tell you that she's stupid or just blatantly lying to you. Because she's saying, oh, look at the traffic data. Well, yeah, considering Kotaku is doing X, all of their traffic is gonna be because of X. If you're selling bottles, then all of your traffic is gonna come from people wanting to buy or sell or whatever to do with bottles. You're not gonna have a sudden stream of people who are interested in Lambos going to your bottle whatever site. Okay? This is not how data works.
And editors who work here, and then she publicly tweeted some personal news. I've resigned from Kotaku and Jim is a herb. And if you don't know what that means, basically, Jim reportedly, allegedly gets very angry when people call him a herb. It's sort of like a Geo Media insider thing. So as much as Jim might be offended that he has been called a herb in public, there's actually a bit more here, because to say that this is just they want to deprioritize news and...
Also, by the way, that is extremely professional. That is extremely professional of someone who is, well, this is technically she's a high status person. That is very professional. Yeah, so good luck in the future, girl.
There's actually a bit more here, because to say that this is just they want to deprioritize news and do some guides, that's actually kind of downplaying things. When we get into allegedly what some of the goals are that would be set for staff going forward, they do appear to be impossible to achieve in a way that would actually serve audiences, which basically means it's either total uber slop, or it's just, well, a justification to get people to quit the site, or time-saving technologies of AI to use that instead. So let's actually properly get into things then. The 7-person writing team at Kotaku, which by the way is pretty damn tiny for a site of that size, so the 7-person writing team would be required to publish 50 guides a week. Now, a guide is not a news post, okay? If a bit of news happens, look, it's pretty easy to do. There'll be a press kit with some images. You can just write up what's happened. It's easy, right? We all know that that's kind of easy to do. A guide, though, is a bit different. It requires careful wording, screenshotting.
Wait, so, doing something that doesn't require effort is fine to ask from your staff, but when the staff actually need to put in effort and work, that's where Bellier crosses the line, and that's too much. No wonder Kotaku's failing. Jeez.
Understanding exactly what an audience wants to know as the person doing the guides is playing through the game. Making good guides is a discipline and often ends up being a pretty thankless one that never really gets enough credit. But we all know times we've looked up a guide online and, you know, be it a forum post on GameFAQs or something like that, it's been great. But what they're asked to do is, yes, 50 guides a week, which would mean that every staff member would be required to play, learn, and then write up guide content, which essentially would remove the space for...
So essentially 7 people doing that would be, they need to make 1 guide a day, implying that they work 7 days a week. So they need, yeah, that is, admittedly, that is a little bit too much to ask, but, you know, hey, I'm completely fine with Kotaku failing.
Or just about everything else. Now, for context here, right, the current total post count, allegedly that's sort of expected from staff, is a minimum of 4 posts per shift from staff across all fields. Now, if your boss just says, we need 4 posts, that's already going to incentivize you to not do good work. You're like, okay, I need 4 posts. Is that a Reddit post that looks spicy? bam, I'll grab that and I'll put it in the box. Is that an interesting article over in VGC? Cool, I will summarize it, rewrite it, and then we will post it, and we will say via VGC at the bottom of our post. Like, if you're ever wondering why a lot of these game sites end up looking the way they do, it often is things like that, because at the end of the day, what you want to do is more things that can be SEO friendly, so you can get more page views, so that you can show more advertisements to people. Which, I mean, hey, the advertising model, you can see ways where it's good, where it does keep content, you know, free to access, but you can see the bad incentives. Now, this whole 50 guide a week thing is quite hilarious when you compare it to IGN. So this is fairly interesting, just some analysis here. The management of Geo has shown no understanding of basic audience growth or realistic editorial workloads, especially with enthusiast properties, each of which relies on their own domain-specific realities. IGN, a competitor of Kotaku, has dozens of staffers dedicated to producing guides alone, a type of content that takes hundreds of hours to play and indexing for most AAA titles. To ask 7 staffers to do 50 a week is not just cruel, it's impossible. It's impossible if you properly write good guides. And that means proper good guides won't happen. It actually seems that that may be the point. Either Jim and co understand this so little, or the point actually is, well, that they want some of these other things to happen. So, Kotaku's corporate owners, Geo Media, have spent the last year either gutting sites of longtime staff, selling them to gambling advertorial agencies, or just filling the web with AI trash articles that essentially serve nobody, all while pressuring staff to keep up to really high demands. Otherwise, of course, they'll probably just lose their jobs. And on that, it does seem that Geo is doing a
it's not that he implies this, but the way he speaks it, he doesn't mention anything else. It almost seems like he's saying, "Hey, they do this, but no one else does this." IGN does also AI articles and shit like that. Like, every news site does some kind of AI stuff at this point.
Mandate that people move to New York in order to write for Kotaku. And it's one of those things, I'm pretty sure you can write for, you know, a gaming website pretty much anywhere. And often whenever something like that happens, it's really because the company wants to, you know, they're legally allowed to say, okay, you must work here. That's just the terms of the deal. They are legally allowed to do that, so it's a way to basically reduce your headcount. Essentially to make the new description of somebody's job untenable for that person so they can leave in a way where you don't have to pay them severance or do any of those things because it's technically on their own volition. Now, of course, if you run a site like that, you're going to make a lot of enemies, and one of their ex-editors certainly is one of them. Patricia tweeted, "Once an editor told me that Jim explained to them that his strategy was to apply pressure and see what happens. He is likely aware this is untenable, but wants people to worry so much about their job that they'll do the impossible to keep it." So that's another thing. That's absolutely lovely. And that's kind of why...
Hey, if you're a shit journalist like from Kotaku, I mean, and? So? You have been living a life all this time as a leech to society, as a pest that's primary goal in existence was to pretty much ruin gaming and call gamers bad, misogynist bigots and whatnot. And now look at you. How the tables have turned. And I need to be, oh no, Kotaku, no, so sad. No, I'm gonna be, yes, Kotaku, fired them, Kotaku, destroyed their lives, Kotaku. Finally, you're doing something good. Maybe this is the redemption saga for Kotaku. Ooh, who knows?
Staff are under the impression that they would be essentially required to steal from other guides and then reproduce them for Kotaku, or just let AI do it for them. Now, with the earlier AIs, it was fairly easy to use, you know, like a sort of detector tool to see if something, you know, was just kind of like AI-generated slop. But as time goes on, that will be harder, right? And you can just go look at a guide that IGN is doing, and you can just jamble the words about, and then you can just publish it. I mean, that's literally not like React content, but you know the criticism of React content. Was it Lemio or whoever it was spent, you know, months making this big-ass video, and, you know, XQC just, you know, that story, right? This is not the exact same thing, but the idea that you can just rehash somebody else's work, fire it up on your website in order to hit some sort of corporate mandate. At the end of the day, that still keeps the site perfectly full of content. And the thing that actually matters here for these sites, it's not really the content. A lot of these sites will have an infrastructure, you know, with their SEO, how all of their ads are delivered, to the point where they kind of just need stuff that'll, you know, index decently and just get them traffic so that ads can happen. The actual quality of the post, that doesn't matter. They're not paid for the post, really. That's kind of one of the perverse incentives that makes a lot of our media so much worse. If the incentive structure meant that you actually got rewarded for getting a proper scoop, you know, like a proper, you know, big report. If the incentives rewarded that, that's what would happen more. But the incentives, of course, reward volume, and that is why a lot of the quality of written content on the internet is getting
well, if you're talking... Okay, so this...
worse and worse.
This would not work in real life, as he, I assume, thinks. Because if you award people for doing the breaking news style thing or whatever, first of all, you need to make sure that they're the one breaking the news, which is actually kind of hard, because probably they just saw a Twitter post and ran with it. Two, this would completely gut absolutely most journalists, because most journalists don't know how to break stuff. They don't know how to get those scoops. They have absolutely no connections to people or whatever. Best case, they're Taylor Lorenz and they try to intimidate people. Best case, they're Sweet Baby Inc. and they try to intimidate people. That is pretty much it. So if you're trying to advocate, oh, these poor journalists, they're losing their jobs, then this is not what you want to say for them to keep their jobs, because that would probably mean that maybe one or two people in Kotaku get to keep their job. Maybe if you apply a strategy like that.
Worse and worse. Now, this kind of thing happening is very normal. We are seeing lots of sites pivot to guides or just cheap SEO content. It's happened multiple times over the last few...
I'm pretty sure there should be something about Sweet Baby Inc. because this Kotaku stuff is kind of completely getting boring at this point. He's just saying Kotaku should not fail, blah blah blah, Kotaku good, blah blah blah.
Years. As an example, the people who own Gamers Group, they are just running their suite of sites into the...
I don't give a shit about who owns Gamers Group. They own it. They paid for it. They own it. They can demand that these sites now produce money for them because that's how it works. I'm not gonna say whoever Gamarus or whatever the Gamer Group, whatever it's called, are bad. They own these sites. They can choose what now happens. If you don't like it, suck it up, Buttercup. Or, I don't know, buy it from them, I guess, in this case. But, you know, they have the right to do whatever the hell they feel like.
The dirt, with similar sorts of demands, just, you know, quantity over quality, obviously. This actually led to a report that was done by Aftermath. They titled it Workers...
Dude, there's already no quality. There's already no quality in half of these outlets. Well, more than half, let's be real. So, what are you talking even about?
The Gamers Group of do their own thing, because of course they did. And I suppose there's a twisted logic to this.
Okay, let's find. There should be something about Sweet Baby Inc.
No, not to do that, because it would be very
Because, again, see, from the comments on the apology video, I think he... ran defense for Sweet Baby Inc. Kotaku? No, Kotaku again. Where is Sweet Baby Inc.? Strange.
Wise, and you'd just be disappointed. Even within the last few years, actually, just about every big report about Ubisoft's Skull and Bones, they've actually come from Kotaku. We've had multiple stories revealing the inner workings of Microsoft studios around...
Okay, this sounds like complete bullshit. If all of these big things come from Kotaku, then why do gamers hate Kotaku? If all of these big stories are... If Kotaku is so groundbreaking, why does no one read it? This makes absolutely no sense. Kotaku does none of this. Kotaku breaks none of these stories. Where was it at the start where he insinuated that, you know, Kotaku broke the Overwatch 2 PB cancellation? They didn't. They didn't. That stuff was rolling on the internet for a week or two before Kotaku even picked it up.
their their acquisitions and stuff like that as well, corporate malpractice stuff. When the Activision Blizzard scandals were being highlighted, Bobby Kotick actually
What did Kotaku do? I'm pretty sure Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal were the best sources for, laughing about Blizzard and what's happening there. So I'm not sure what Kotaku has even done. Again, I, as many of you, watch videos of people talking about the news, and often they use these sites and they show the article. And I'm pretty sure even Young doesn't use Kotaku as a source.
Considered buying Kotaku in order to shut down the journalistic things that their staff were trying to do, which, I mean, hey.
Cry me a river.
That's going to come first, because in our opinion, that is what makes the line go up. But if you are Geo Media and you couldn't give a thing, it is why Jason Schreier left the site in 2020, and this has basically been echoed in just about all of the conversations that ex-staff have had in the intervening years. Geo Media exists to do asset flips. Get it? Got it? Sell it. Done. And the bit that's hilarious is a lot of these sites were in nice, profitable states when they were acquired, and then, because of all the misguided bullshit, they end up being gutted. So here are some
Were they? Because if they got acquired in the first place, that means they weren't really in the best of positions, probably. Well, maybe that's wrong, but usually things that are doing really, really good don't get acquired like that.
Choice examples. Geo Media tried to kill every piece and succeeded on a couple of investigative journalism pieces I ever wrote at Kotaku, and it's infuriating that AI-generated garbage is what they are investing their resources into.
That sounds believable.
Kotaku is now down to 3 editors, including the editor-in-chief. For reference, I had twice that number a few years ago. So all of this,
I mean, still doesn't sound impressive.
Is a recipe for content that would appear to us to be lazy, but it's actually not lazy. It's just done as quick as fucking possible because the people who have
So it is lazy.
to do it are under pretty unfair, pretty damn unrealistic targets. And whether you agree with their opinions or their politics or, any of that, job is. Here's...
So there's nothing about Sweet Baby Inc. Huh, it's all just running cover for Kotaku, I guess.
Here's a fun little statement. Traffic across Geo Media. The gaming news is very spicy these days. Like, how from 2019 to now you can fail to grow, I do not know. Because there's just been free news like every 2 days. It's been insane. I mean, even for like our team, we have struggled to keep up with it in 2024 because it's been so goddamn relentless. It's not even a thing of like, we're sitting there, oh god, we're down. Now, if you're wondering what Geo Media owns, right?
I guess that's it. Wow. Yeah, he's just running. So, yeah, Kotaku good, essentially. This is the video. Well, anyway, that was Bellier News. Kotaku good. Wow. What a take. Anyway, this is Quizzer Sid saying thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.